You know those incredible cars you see in the movies? Ever stop and wonder what actually happens to them after the credits roll? Well, here's a secret. Hollywood's greatest automotive legends, they don't get a quiet retirement. Nope. Most of the time, they just disappear. They become ghosts of their former glory. So, let's dive into the incredible story of the people who hunt them down. And yeah, that is the bizarre, honest-to-goodness truth. After all the fame, the magazine covers, the big screen heroics, these one-of-a-kind machines are just abandoned. I'm talking left to rust in junkyards, totally forgotten in some dusty storage container, or just tucked away in a private garage, just waiting, for someone to come along and rediscover their magic.
All right, Section 1, Hollywood's automotive ghosts. And let's talk about going from a world record to a rusted wreck. You know, there is probably no better example of this whole cycle of fame and neglect than the story of a 100-foot-long limousine found rotting away in a New Jersey industrial park. I mean, think about that. A car that once held a world record was left to literally die in the weeds.
This was the American dream. It was a completely wild custom creation from the mind of the legendary builder J. Olferberg. And it wasn't just a car, you guys. It was a rolling monument to the idea that more is always more. A true spectacle, all built from, believe it or not, a humble '76 Cadillac Eldorado. And just get a load of how absurd this thing was. We're talking a helipad, a swimming pool with a diving board, a jacuzzi, and yeah, even a mini golf putting green. This beast needed 2 V8 engines and 2 drivers just to get its 26 wheels moving. It was completely, beautifully, wonderfully over the top. So you can imagine, after it was found looking like an absolute shipwreck, bringing it back to life, yeah, that wasn't cheap. It took a dedicated team of collectors $250,000 to restore the American dream, piece by painstaking piece. Now that is some true passion right there.
Okay, next up, the Great Disappearance. Why does Hollywood abandon its stars? Because the thing is, the story of the American dream, it isn't unique, not even close. It's actually a shockingly common fate for some of the most iconic cars in cinema history. See, once the production wraps, these automotive stars are often just seen as used props, something to get rid of.
I mean, just think about it for a second. The original Ecto-1 from Ghostbusters. It spent years just deteriorating under a leaking roof. One of the Back to the Future DeLoreans was found completely stripped and weathered in some storage unit in California. Even the iconic '66 Batmobile, it was so poorly preserved for decades before collectors finally realized its true value. It's just this pattern of shocking neglect.
So, let's get into the hunt for these legends. This is the high-stakes game of automotive archaeology. What all this neglect has done is create this fascinating, high-stakes game. We're talking about a whole world of automotive archaeologists who dedicate their lives to finding these lost treasures. It's like a real-life detective story, you know, following cold trails and forgotten whispers.
And believe me, some of these stories are just unbelievable. Take Elvis Presley's personal station wagon, for example. Now, Cadillac never actually made a wagon, so what did he do? He had one custom built, of course. He used it for everything. But after his death in 1977, this unique piece of rock and roll history just, poof, vanished. For 30 years, 3 decades, the car was completely off the grid. Nobody knew where it was. And then, it just quietly resurfaces. And by 2015, bam, it pops up on eBay with a price tag of $1.5 million. Can you believe that? A true time capsule that had been hiding in plain sight the whole time. But that raises the million-dollar question, doesn't it? Literally, in some cases. For every hunter out there, with so much at stake, how do you actually prove that a car is the genuine article and not just some clever fake? Well, the process is way less about luck and a whole lot more about good old-fashioned detective work.
Let me give you a perfect example. The story of the 1950 Mercury from Sylvester Stallone's movie Cobra. So, one of the surviving stunt cars was tracked down to a garage after being lost for 16 years. The new owner confirms his history, okay, but then he goes through the movie frame by frame, matching every single scratch and dent. And for the final proof, he takes it to the original builder, Eddie Paul, who confirms, yep, this is the real deal. And then he personally restores it. I mean, that's the forensic level of detail we're talking about here.
All right, on to our next section, the modern clone crisis. How do you separate the real from the replicas? Because that forensic work we just talked about, it is more important now than ever. Modern hunters are facing a massive challenge, and it's called the clone crisis. You see, for every one real movie car, there are often hundreds, sometimes even thousands of fan-built replicas out there.
And the General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard? Oh, that's the ultimate example. With literally thousands of tribute cars out there, finding one of the very few surviving screen-used cars, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack that's made entirely of other needles. It's almost impossible. You absolutely need ironclad production documentation to prove you've got the real deal.
And here's why the originals are so insanely rare. The show destroyed, get this, nearly 300 Dodge Chargers during its run. They literally consumed their own star car into near extinction. They got to a point where they were running out of Chargers to buy and were forced to just cobble replicas together.
And then you've got the Eleanor Mustang. That story is even crazier. Only 11 of them were ever built for the film. Their massive value led to these intense legal battles that completely froze the replica market for years. And then, in a twist that feels like it's straight out of the movie, one of the actual screen-used cars was stolen in 2021 before, thankfully, being recovered. It's a whole saga in itself.
Okay, let's talk resurrection and legacy. Why do we rescue these automotive ghosts? This all brings us back to that really big question, why? Right? Why spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, years of your life rescuing these things? The answer? Well, it's about so much more than just cars. It's about preserving a piece of our cultural history.
And that brings us right back to where we started, with that rusted-out limo in New Jersey. On March 1st, 2022, after that massive $250,000 restoration, the American Dream limousine didn't just come back to life. It smashed its own Guinness World Record, measuring just over 100 feet long. From a total rusted wreck to a world champion all over again.
And you know, ultimately, that's what this is really all about. These cars aren't just cars. They're tangible proof of a time when imagination just ran completely wild. They're a testament to human creativity and to the incredible passion of the hunters who believe these pieces of our history are worth finding again, no matter what it takes.
It really makes you wonder though, doesn't it? If a 100-foot-long limousine and Elvis's personal station wagon can be lost for decades, hiding in plain sight, what other iconic pieces of our history are still out there right now, sitting under a tarp in a barn or rusting away in a field, just waiting for the right hunter to finally find them?